Are you a god?
No.
Then...
Today we're diving into Stellaris Shadows of the Shroud, the new DLC, and we're going to look at all 14 of the entities that are in that shroud. There are 4 major patrons, 4 great patrons, 8 minor patrons, and all of them do something slightly different. We're also going to find out exactly what psionic auras are, how we get them, and how we can spread them, and then revisit the Cavantian sovereignty to find out more about a new Civic, experimental sentencing, which is basically slavery tech rushing. But before we delve into the new DLC features, don't forget you can buy absolutely anything from the Paradox Interactive store to get your hands on Steam keys for their games and DLCs, and also support this channel by using our link down in the description below, or heading over to the store and using the code MONTUPLAYS at the checkout. So who are the entities within the Shroud? There are 4 major patrons now, and these patrons are very similar to what we had previously, though you will note one difference. We have the Instrument of Desire, which is all about lust and the craven desires of the flesh. The Composer of Strands, which is kind of all about growth and decay. The Eater of Worlds, all about combat. And the new one, the Cradle of Souls. These are dominant within the Shrouds, and they have each of the different domains. These are the 4 domains we see on our Psionic Shroud political map. The Instrument of Desire is labelled here as boundless urge to possess and indulge. The Composer of Strands, a primal connection to the natural world. The Eater of Worlds, an unending hunger that cannot be sated. And the Cradle of Souls, a welcoming vessel for communication and exchange. The Cradle of Souls almost sounds like the nice patron here, I have to say. We've previously had the patrons in the Shroud being matched quite directly to the Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Fantasy warp gods, those being the Instrument of Desire being Slaanesh, the Composer of Strands being Nurgle, the Eater of Worlds being Khorne, and we used to have the Whisperers of the Void, which was Tzeentch. Now we don't have that. It doesn't really seem like we have a Tzeentch option. I'm kind of happy they're moving away from a direct kind of rip of the Warhammer 40k or Warhammer warp gods, to be honest. I think that's nice. It's still cool that we've got some of them though. Right, these are not the only denizens of the Shroud. In each playthrough, we will also meet 4 of 8 minor patrons. A sculpting presence, a sorrowed entity, a fathomless being, an insurmountable one, a luxurious being, an irenic entity, an unyielding one, and a restless presence. Exactly what they do, we don't know yet, but they have their place between each of 2 domains, though the exact being you will encounter may differ from game to game. Communing seems to be relatively similar now. You'll get a special project and you can commune with some whispers in the Shroud. This example being the Fathomless Being, one of those minor entities, the denizens, the minor patrons you can meet out there in the void, I'm pretty sure. The minor patrons have accords for those they meet, and should you encounter them again, they may grant you a portion of their power in the form of a Zro-consuming edict. Okay, so here we can see the Black River, which seems to be, if you look at the image, it seems to be on the cross-section between the red and yellow domains. That has an effect, Psionic Aura, plus 25% sublight speed, so I'm guessing these powers will sometimes be boosting our Psionic Aura, as well as giving us a modifier here. Our telepaths, for every 100 of them, we're going to produce a small amount of Zro and dark matter. That's nice. Zro seems to be very necessary, and I'm going to assume it's still necessary, for building things and doing things in the Shroud. We can also see here a Zro-consuming edict, Animatus, which seems to be coming from the Animator of Clay. So maybe the Animator of Clay is now just a minor patron. I don't believe they were listed in the entities listed earlier though, so I'm a little confused. I would suspect they have something to do with machine psionic ascension, given the Animator of Clay is all about machines and that kind of thing, but I guess who knows at this point. This effect is going to give you 0.5% hull and armor regen, 10% evasion chance, and 10% ship fire rate. If we can get 4 of these edicts that each are granting us similar bonuses, this could be very, very strong. My hypothesis so far is the actual ascension path, the tradition itself, isn't super strong, but what is going to be quite strong is as we pick up things in the Shroud, as we explore the Shroud and grab onto the effects we can gain from that, we're going to end up with lots and lots of powers and abilities. On top of all of that, there are also 2 great patrons. That is 2 patrons that are stronger than the Eater of Worlds, the Instrument of Desire, the Composer of Strands, and the Cradle of Souls. One of them is the End of the Cycle, and we're going to be looking at that in a future dev diary in more detail, but the other one is, it seems, the Whisperers in the Void. They are still here, Zeech is still here, but they've had a lick of paint, and they're now much stronger. At the center of the Shroud spins the Whisperers, an ever-shifting amalgam of all patrons with knowledge of all things. So I think if we can get a covenant with the Whisperers, that could be the strongest entity of all. The Shroud is no fixed realm. It bends to the psyche of those who enter, reflecting their nature, desire, and fears. What one empire encounters within may differ wildly from another's experience. The Shroud reveals and conceals in equal measure. Apparently, it is most mysterious. We haven't been shown anything about exactly what the Whisperers will do or how to get access to this great patron, but we just know it's out there. And if you're enjoying this video, please let the whispers into the like button. We have heard about Psionic Auras, now we're going to find out even more about them. Let's delve into this new topic. An empire that has achieved a certain level of accord with a domain unlocks accords, but also gains access to the Psionic Auras technology. So in order to get Psionic Auras, we may need this technology, and to get this technology, we need some level of attunement with the Shroud entities, with at least one of them to get access to an accord. So getting attunement early seems to be very important. I wonder how fast we can get that. This will allow some of the Shroud's power to leak back into our corporeal reality, emitted from where your psionic population is concentrated. So it seems like the auras will start where we have psionic pops. These auras provide passive benefits to you and your allies and hinder your enemies. We've already seen the End of the Cycle aura that seems to grant plus 100% resource output, or maybe plus 100% pop job efficiency. We're not entirely sure on that one. But also lots of other bonuses, some military, some to do with stability, all sorts of nice things. If you have not made a covenant with an entity, your aura will reflect the nature of the domain with which you have the greatest accord. Though if you're actively moving about the Shroud, it won't change more than once per month. Upon forming a covenant or rejecting all covenants to form your own path, Psionic Aura Intensification then becomes available for research. Let's take a look at that technology. Here we can see the Psionic Aura Intensification. It is level 2, so I'm assuming that you first need the Psionic Aura Tech level 1 to gain access to these auras, which was kind of mentioned earlier. And then if we get to level 2, we get plus 20% success chance when delving. I don't know what you define success as when delving into the Shroud though, so who knows. And then you unlock features, Psionic Aura Spread and Psionic Aura Growth. And also, the dev who cropped this notes that they did not crop the image correctly. They have now shown us there are new psionic military components. We currently have Zrow Shielding or Psionic Shielding, as well as Psionic Cloaking and Psionic Combat Computers plus Psionic Jump Drives. They are basically better versions of the normal components. Psionic Shielding being pretty much the best shielding in the game. Here we have Psionic Disruptors and Zrow Launchers. Disruptors against anything but an endgame crisis are pretty much the best weapon you can have if they don't have enough armor or shield hardening to prevent you slapping through. Having Psionic Disruptors being a better version of Disruptors seems ridiculously strong. On top of that, neutron launchers are still very, very good. They're a fantastic piece of artillery, especially to put on defense platforms. Having a better version of a neutron launcher being a Zrow launcher, This could give some very much needed late game power to Psionic Ascension. We're now going to have the best shields, the best disruptors, the best neutron launchers, the best jump drives, arguably medium best computers, and the best cloaking. So the Psionic Aura technology allows your auras to grow and even spread into other systems. When two auras collide, the stronger aura will eat away at the weaker one until it takes over. This kind of reminds me of like culture spread in Sins of a Solar Empire 2, to be honest, because if you look at this image, it's spreading between star systems along hyperlanes, alright? Psionic auras can be seen on the galaxy map similar to cosmic storms, except as you can see here, they first off take over a system, then spread along the hyperlane. We can also see from this image that the intensity is moderate. I'm assuming there must then be a low and high intensity, maybe a very low and very high, each different level, perhaps providing stronger and stronger bonuses from the aura. We're also getting an intensity increase here of plus 121. If that is per month, these auras might be able to spread out very, very quickly. If that is per year, maybe they take quite a while to get going. And don't forget, these auras are going to give big bonuses to you. They also seem to give some bonuses to friendly neighbors or friendly empires that have your aura in their system, and they do give big negative modifiers to hostile empires. So you probably need to kill off any psionic empire next to you if they are your enemy, or make them your friend in order to not get slapped about by their aura. This is adding a new dynamic to the game. We're basically getting culture spreading like from Sins of a Solar Empire 2. I think that's really cool. This is a new mechanic that we've never really seen before. I almost wish we had something like this for actual culture in the game, now that I'm thinking about it. Ooh, that could be very cool. I'm sure somebody could come up with a mod to make psionic auras into more kind of cultural auras that can be spread out through the galaxy, thus giving you more of a cultural victory type, at least in theory. Now we're going to dive into one of the new Civic's experimental sentencing. In the last dev diary, the Cavantian sovereignty rejected the shackles of a covenant. Their neighbours, the Magar, weren't quite so lucky. They found themselves in Cavantian shackles, as the Cavanti took experimental sentencing as their third civic. Let's read what this does. So, for normal empires, we start with the experimental testing situation, which grants technology insight upon completion. We can also construct experimentation chambers. All non-machine slaves get access to the orderly slave job, and we get access to slave army abominations. We also have a council position, Experimentation Overseer, which will give us more unity from our test subjects, and we will lose less test subjects during the experimental testing situation. Nice. There's also Judicial R&D, which is a Megacorp version that does pretty much the same thing, even having the same counselor position, but it's called Test Marketer. And down at the bottom we have Corrective Consciousness for Hive Minds, which gives you, again, experimental testing and the experimentation chamber, but none of the slave nonsense, unfortunately. Let's read a bit more about what on earth experimental testing is. Basically, the situation, which you can see at the bottom center of this set of images, lets you choose a branch of research to focus on, that being physics, society, or engineering, and when completed, will provide progress on a technology. Some of your test subjects will be lost, but it's easy enough to get more of them. Slaves set to the orderly slavery type will assist your researchers if they do not have any other worker jobs to take, providing a smaller number of amenities and, this is a big one, increasing researcher output. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we now will have a slave type that increases researcher output. This looks to be a little bit like mandatory pampering from rogue servitors, but instead of boosting all of your complex drone output and providing some unity, it's only going to boost your researcher output, which is not quite as good, but still very, very tasty. We can also see what the experimentation chamber does. This gives you some more materialist ethics attraction and gives you some experiment engineers, which produce research and test subject jobs. Lovely, lovely, lovely. This is also going to give you more criminal branch office trade value for reasons I don't quite understand fully. Maybe testing on subjects where you would not otherwise be able to do so legally is good for criminal enterprising, who knows. But yeah, this is overall a rush Civic for tech if you are an enslaver, so if you're xenophobic or authoritarian, it looks like. The abominations look to basically be very cheap armies, and they have relatively good army damage and morale damage output. They do a lot of collateral damage, but have reasonable health and morale. Not the best morale, but reasonable. They are very cheap and cheerful. Thumbs up for abominations. This is one of the 2 new playable ship sets. This is the Psionic Shipset. It's very purple, and it's very sleek. I'm not entirely sure it screams Psionic, but I don't hate it at all. To me, it kind of reminds me of the Covenant a little bit. I'm getting really Covenant vibes from this, from Halo, but each to their own. There are some more images in last week's thread, but Abrakan has made this image for those who need a nice desktop background of the new shipset. I don't think that's an in-game image, but actually it might be. I think that's a combination of art pieces. I don't think that's an in-game image. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, next up we're going to find out more about the Mind Warden Enclave, the Mind Warden Origin, that chipset, and the Shroud Forged and Tank Bound. That'll be on Thursday. Until then, don't forget, if you'd like to buy anything from the Paradox Interactive Store, including the Shadows of the Shroud DLC, which means you can get your hand on Steam keys to redeem on Steam, and also support this channel, you can do so by using the link down in the description below, or using our code MONTUPLAYS at the Paradox Interactive Store checkout. If you enjoyed this video on the new Shadows of the Shroud DLC, but you want to know more, specifically about the new Psionic Ascension mechanics and how we can delve into the Shroud, you'll want to click the video on screen now.